On the first, Morrel returned. He was awaited by his family with extreme anxiety, for from this journey to Paris they hoped great things. Morrel had thought of Danglars, who was now immensely rich, and had lain under great obligations to Morrel in former days, since to him it was owing that Danglars entered the service of the Spanish banker, with whom he had laid the foundations of his vast wealth. It was said at this moment that Danglars was worth 6 to 8 millions of francs, and had unlimited credit. Danglars, then, without taking a crown from his pocket, could save Morrel. He had but to pass his word for a loan, and Morrel was saved. Morrel had long thought of Danglars, but had kept away for some instinctive motive, and had delayed as long as possible, availing himself of this last resource. And Morrel was right, for he returned home crushed by the humiliation of a refusal. Yet, on his arrival, Morrel did not utter a complaint or say one harsh word. He embraced his weeping wife and daughter, pressed Emmanuel's hand with friendly warmth, and then, going to his private room on the second floor, had sent for Cocles. "Then," said the two women to Emmanuel, "we are indeed ruined." It was agreed, in a brief council held among them, that Julie should write to her brother, who was at garrison in Nîmes, to come to them as speedily as possible. The poor women felt instinctively that they required all their strength to support the blow that impended. Besides, Maximilian Morrel, though hardly 22, had great influence over his father. Okay, if that sped by you as quickly as it sped by me, fear not. We're going to slow this down and really take a look at that whole thing. Okay, I didn't acknowledge in yesterday's episode that Morrel was leaving and on a trip, and everyone expected that he was basically skipping town, but he wasn't. Here we learn where he was going. He was going to Paris to talk to Danglars about a loan, and Danglars saying no. Now, there's a lot going on here. First, Morrel initially employed Danglars on the Pharaon, and then it says here Morrel was basically responsible for Danglars' fortune. Where's the sentence? Since to him it was owing that Danglars entered the service of the Spanish banker, with whom he had laid the foundations of his vast wealth. As we remember from Caderousse, Danglars entered into the Spanish banking system, married, that woman died, left him her fortune, married another wealthy person. So it doesn't say how exactly Morrel got him into the banking system, but I'm assuming Morrel's reputation at the time was probably a good recommendation. So two things that Danglars is deeply indebted to Morrel for, and it sounds like to Danglars, 6 to 8 millions of francs. I know this isn't a 1-to-1, but 6 to 8 millions of francs. Take this with a grain of salt. Math is not my strong suit. I just did a very simple precursory research on this, so this could not be accurate possibly. But essentially in 2025, 6 to 8 millions of francs would potentially be billionaire level money in 2025. So the fact that Morrel is asking for a fraction of that as a loan, and Danglars saying, nah, brah. Danglars a dick. He's a dick. Now, interesting that Dumas, though, is not letting us in on that story. He's keeping Danglars at a distance, I'm assuming because he wants to save that interaction. He wants to save us, the readers, being able to look Danglars in the face in order to do it through the eyes of Dante. But it does add a little bit more in the demerit column of Danglars' little sheet. You know, if we have our Batman monitors up in front of us and we're looking at the Danglars dossier and all of the reasons why he deserves retribution, we just added another bullet point to his list. Though, would Dante know of this? I'm not sure. The other interesting thing arising here is his family and Emmanuel, who's basically family, intervening indirectly by writing to his son, to Julie's brother. He's a 22-year-old soldier, it sounds like, serving in Nîmes, and has deep influence over Morrel. His name's Maximilian. I always loved that name. But they're contacting him because this kind of vague line of anxiety saying required all their strength to support the blow that impended. What blow is impending? The ruin of Morrel and family. Right? I guess, okay, now, hold on. When we've been saying the ruin of Morrel, I've kind of been thinking of it collectively. The ruin of the Morrel name, not the ruin of a singular man. Because if Julie, Emmanuel, Madame Morrel, they're all part of the Morrel name, so to speak. But if they're breaking off and saying, no, there's another blow coming, I have to imagine that means to Morrel himself. Do we know Morrel's first name? Maybe, okay, that's kind of, now that, because I saw Maximilian, okay, a little view behind the scenes here. As I was reading this, I saw Maximilian Morrel, and I'm like, oh, hey, we learned Morrel's first name, but no, that's the name of his son. Do we know the first name of Monsieur Morrel? I'm not so sure. Anyway, point being, they're afraid of a impending blow to a singular man, Morrel himself, and that's concerning. That they have to call a soldier away to come home to help. Interesting. Anyway, a lot of stuff coming up here. Let's just continue here tomorrow. I always struggle a little bit with these in-between entries because it forces me into kind of a speculative mode. Anyway, let's continue here tomorrow with a little bit more of Chapter 30. We're not even halfway through. We're not even close to halfway through. Long chapter, I told you. Okay, until then,
The
goodbye.
Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.